Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of the latest mission from Vandenberg Space Force Base in Southern California. I'm Will Robinson Smith. I'll be providing our commentary for the duration of the coverage this evening. Our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, is running the technical aspects of the broadcast. And since this is a West Coast launch, our launch photography team does have the evening off after working very hard to bring us some great launch views of the AX-3 mission that went up earlier today. Successful liftoff of 4 astronauts who are now making their way toward the International Space Station, getting ready to dock early Friday morning. Good evening to all of our wonderful channel members popping into the live chat and to our moderators also working hard on a Thursday evening. Stephanie B. Astro Joe, I see you both. Glad to have you aboard. We're now T minus 25 minutes, 9 seconds and counting to the planned launch of the Starlink 7-11 mission. This being a Falcon 9 flight from Space Launch Complex 4 East at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. At this point in the countdown, SpaceX should be about 10 minutes into propellant load as they start at T minus 35 minutes with both rocket grade kerosene and liquid oxygen being loaded onto the vehicle. That RP-1 being loaded onto both the first and the second stages of the Falcon 9 rocket, and liquid oxygen onto just the first stage at this point. We are at this point also awaiting word from SpaceX that propellant is underway. We do actually have a statement from SpaceX saying that they have begun prop load for tonight's launch. Coming in just about 10 minutes or so ago. We're now T minus 22 minutes, 50 seconds and counting. Just a little over 2 minutes away from the big vent occurring as the feed lines are chilled and in the run up to the process of liquid oxygen being loaded on board the second stage of the Falcon 9 rocket. Should be getting visual of the vehicle in about 15 or so minutes. Liftoff, of course, is scheduled at the time that you see there on your screen, 8:04 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 11:04 Eastern, 04:04 UTC. If you'd like to help support our coverage of the space program, there's a quick and easy way to do that, which we very much appreciate. If you just hit the like button and share the stream, helps the YouTube algorithm do its thing and allows more folks to find this live launch coverage as we get closer to the launch of the Starlink 7-11 mission. This will be SpaceX's 7th orbital launch, 7th Falcon 9 as well, of this still yet young year. This will also be the third orbital launch from California and the eighth overall from U.S. soil, including United Launch Alliance's Vulcan inaugural launch not too long ago. No, T-minus 21 minutes, 9 seconds and counting. As we continue to go on through the count, let's go ahead and get the formality of the launch countdown out of the way, so we're all familiar with the milestones coming up. The launch director would have given that go for the start of propellant load back at T-minus 38 minutes. As I mentioned, prop load began at the T-minus 35-minute mark. About 10 minutes or so ago, cryogenic helium was loaded onto the first stage. Helps to pressurize the tanks. Same with the helium on the second stage. That was about 6 minutes ago. T-minus 20 minutes, 20 seconds. The big vent is taking place right now, is about when it would be starting, assuming all is on course with this mission tonight. T-minus 23 minutes, that's when the loading of the second stage kerosene concludes. That strong back chill down process is underway. That's the marker I just mentioned. T-minus 16 minutes, liquid oxygen loading will begin on the second stage of the vehicle. Moving right along. At T-minus 7 minutes, it's the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines. Involves flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and the turbo pumps, protecting them from the risk of thermal shock and damage during the startup sequence. About 6 minutes prior to launch, the first stage kerosene tank should be full. And at T-minus 4.5 minutes, the strong back retract sequence will begin. At that point, we should have a visual of the rocket, so we'll be able to see those clamp arms opening up. And a little bit different than a Pad 40 launch, the transporter erector or the strong back will recline 13 degrees away from the vehicle. It stays in that position until liftoff. At that point, it pulls back in a much more rapid fashion, clearing the way for the vertical climb of the Falcon 9. About 2 minutes out, liquid oxygen loading should be complete. At that point, the Falcon 9 is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds, control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers. The propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. The launch director gives their go for liftoff at 45 seconds out. The engine ignition command is issued at T-minus 3 seconds. Of course, if all 9 engines are healthy and ignite, the flight computer will give the command for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9 at T0. Again, that's coming up. The times you see here on your screen. We're now at T-minus 18 minutes, 10 seconds and counting. I want to thank a few folks for their support of tonight's launch, our second of the day, before we go ahead and catch some Z's before another busy day wrapping up the week. One of our channel members, Jesse Mason, with a $10 super chat. Really appreciate that, Jesse. Thank you so much for the super chat and for your continued support as a channel member. And to one of our other wonderful channel members, Callistia Lee, for gifting 10 Spacelight Now memberships. Very much appreciate that, Callistia. Always appreciate your ongoing generosity. And to our newest channel members, if you are one of the lucky 10, be sure to thank Callistia in the live chat if you haven't already, and go ahead and enjoy those perks of channel membership, which include, of course, access to our member-only videos here on YouTube, including the helicopter flyby of the AX-3 crew before they went ahead and got ready for their mission earlier today. 4K live streams of all the launches from here at the Cape, as well as discounts at our online shop, shop.spacelightnow.com, where we have things like embroidered crew patches. We'll have a new one entering the shop in the not-too-distant future, as we do have the Crew 8 mission coming up next month. Looking forward to adding in that new patch, adding that to my collection myself. We're now T-minus 16 minutes, 38 seconds and counting. Just a little over 30 seconds away from the start of LOX load. on the second stage of the Falcon 9 vehicle. We're now T-minus 15 minutes, 28 seconds and counting. See a couple of folks in the live chat, including one of our channel members, DJ Andreas, who says, hoping to see the launch in the sky from my house, but I think it started to get cloudy this evening. Well, hopefully things will clear up enough for you to see the launch tonight. But for all those who are in Southern California and a little further south, let's go ahead and talk about where this rocket will be going once it leaves the pad. Let's talk a little trajectory, shall we? Of course, the rocket getting ready to lift off from Space Launch Complex 4 East, or Slick 4E, at Vandenberg Space Force Base tonight. Once it leaves, it will fly in a southeasterly trajectory along the southern coast of California and the western coast of Mexico. That first stage booster, after stage separation, will come down for a landing on SpaceX's West Coast drone ship. Of course, I Still Love You. This is set to be the 80th landing of a booster on board that particular drone ship, getting quite a bit of use as one of the older of the SpaceX fleet. Talk a little bit more about the booster itself, but it's also no spring chicken, as it is getting ready to embark on its 16th flight tonight. Got 15 already under its proverbial belt. And there was a time when 16 flights would make you the flight leader, but far gone are those days for SpaceX, as companies said in recent statements that they are working on certifying boosters up to 40 flights, 40. SpaceX's goals with reuse is to make spaceflight more akin to airline flight in a commercial sense, where reusing vehicles becomes just a routine operation, and you get dozens of flights on each of these first stage boosters. We're now T-minus 12 minutes, 55 seconds and counting to the launch of the Starlink 7-11 mission. Now T minus 11 minutes, 11 seconds and counting. Bradley Janes, who sounds like they're in somewhere in Southern California, says SoCal is socked in, so may not be the best evening to try to catch this Falcon 9 launch once it does depart from Vandenberg Space Force Base. But fortunately, you've got us along for the ride, and we'll be providing you live views coming up in just about 5 or so minutes. And as we come into the final 10 minutes of the count, if you haven't already, it would be greatly appreciated if you could hit the like button, share the stream, and also if you haven't already, consider being a Spaceflight Now subscriber. We are closing in on 150,000. We'd love to have you aboard. And when you do subscribe, be sure to ring the notification bell so that way you get alerted whenever we do have these live streams started, as well as posting standalone videos. We do have a great conversation coming up tomorrow with our news from the press site. That is our now weekly live roundup show where we have conversations with some of the wonderful journalists who are on the space beat at various publications around the country, and hoping to bring in some international journalists into the conversation as well in the not too distant future. On tap this week, I can let you all know that we do have a couple of great guests coming in to join the panel discussion. We have Lauren Grush with Bloomberg, who is also a recent author of the nonfiction book The Six, which is the story about the first 6 female astronauts in NASA's press corps or NASA's astronaut corps. We will also be joined by Marcia Smith with Space Policy Online. So set to be a great conversation with 2 fantastic journalists on the Space Beat. Look forward to having that chat with you. We'll be posting on our social media, X and Threads, the live start time of that. Nominally, we begin our news from the press site at 3 p.m. Eastern. May have a little bit of a scheduling snafu, though we're working through that. It may start somewhere around the 3:15, 3:30 time frame, but it'll be, all things being equal, somewhere in the 3 o'clock hour, likely on the front end. So be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't even have to think about it. You'll just get an alert to your phone when we're ready to go live for that conversation, and we look forward to seeing you there. And definitely come with questions for our fabulous panelists. We're now T minus 7 minutes, 34 seconds and counting. We're about 30 seconds away from the engine chill down sequence beginning, conditioning the 9 Merlin 1D engines to prepare to support the launch Starlink 7-11 mission. As we come upon the start of that chill down, I want to thank a few more folks for their support this evening. I am Letta, one of our wonderful channel members, with a $2 super chat. Really appreciate that, Letta. And Heidi Salaka with a $2 super chat as well. Thank you, Heidi. Really appreciate the support. Nominally, we are T minus 4 minutes, 32 seconds to the planned liftoff of the Falcon 9 vehicle. However, the SpaceX stream has not started yet when it would normally start at T minus 5 minutes or thereabouts. SpaceX has deleted the stream from their X account, so it appears that the launch tonight may in fact be scrubbed. We are standing by for official word from SpaceX. But unfortunately, it seems as though we may not actually get a West Coast Starlink launch tonight. We are standing by for official word on that, but that is the reason why we have taken down our countdown clock at the top of the screen. Unfortunately, because SpaceX has started the fueling process, they were committing themselves to that 8:04 p.m. Pacific time. So again, we are likely in a scrub scenario here, but we are awaiting official word from SpaceX. Seeing as we do have a number of people who have just popped in hoping to see a launch that should be happening right about now, just do want to let you know that SpaceX deleted their live stream on X as well as on their website. And so, as far as we're aware, they have scrubbed the launch of the Starlink 7-11 mission for tonight. We have not gotten official word from SpaceX. And actually, as I was just saying that last sentence, we just got word from SpaceX that they are standing down from tonight's Falcon 9 launch attempt. So the scrub has officially been called by SpaceX. They are now targeting Friday, January 19th for this mission launch. We are just awaiting to see what the targeted launch time will be for their backup that SpaceX is now targeting. They do note that the earliest opportunity would be 6:15 p.m. Pacific time. It's 9:15 Eastern. However, the weather does not look ideal for launch tomorrow. So, even though that is their next earliest opportunity to launch as far as range availability, it may not be optimal as far as weather is concerned. So, we will keep you posted on the status of that. But before we go ahead and sign off, unfortunately, without having a launch here, do want to go ahead and mark some of the launch success that SpaceX did have earlier today. This photo captured by one of our ace photographers, Michael Caine, the launch of the AX-3 astronaut quartet heading up to the International Space Station. You can find more photos like this on our social media, both here on X, formerly known as Twitter, as well as Threads. You can also follow Michael Caine and Adam Bernstein as well. They got some great launch photos of this mission. Just wanted to share this one with you before we go ahead and wrap things up. Want to thank a few more folks for their support, though, and look forward to bringing you live launch coverage of the Starlink 7-11 mission when it does happen. Of course, this one coming in before the scrub was called from Valerie Jones, one of our wonderful channel members, the $5 super chat. Thank you, Valerie, who says 2 launches in one day. Thanks, Spaceflight Now crew. Well, we were ready to bring you 2 launches in a day, but alas, sometimes the launch gods don't cooperate with everything, and it doesn't all quite line up. But thank you for your support, as well as to another channel member, John Dean, with a $5 super chat as well. Thank you, John, who says, I've set an alert for quite a few human spaceflight missions. Love what you're doing here. Well, thanks for helping support it, John. And we certainly love days where we can safely cover humans going to space. We look forward to covering them coming back home after they've spent about 2 weeks on orbit. And lastly, Callistia Lee with the $10 super chat. Thank you, Callistia, who says, thanks, Will, and all of Spaceflight Now for all that you do bringing these launches to us and for the fantastic coverage and info. And I will second to this last part. The mods do, in fact, rock. Keep up the good work. And with that, we're going to go ahead and say goodnight to all of you, or good morning, wherever you happen to be around the world. Our thanks again to the wonderful moderators, Astro Joe, Stephanie B., and all of the others who were helping out earlier on today. Thank you so much for your continued support. It's very, very much appreciated. Our thanks to Stephen Young for running the technical aspects of the broadcast. And most importantly, thanks to all of you for joining us for this launch attempt of the Starlink 7-11 mission. You know, we'll be back with you whenever they are ready to support this launch. And again, be sure to join us tomorrow afternoon for our news roundup. We look forward to seeing you with our News from the Press Site show coming up tomorrow. Again, we've got Lauren Grush from Bloomberg and Marcia Smith from Space Policy Online. Good conversation about news of the week that's already happened. And we've got a couple of big news items that are coming in right at the buzzer beater ahead of our show tomorrow. Early in the morning, we have the next lunar landing attempt, this one being attempted by JAXA. To be just the fifth country in the world to safely land a lander on the moon. And it's got a couple of cool rovers too, including one that's basically like this small sphere that will expand out to become a more agile lunar rover. It's a very cool mission. Anyway, that's set to touch down on the moon's surface tomorrow morning. And we do have a briefing from Axiom, or excuse me, from Astrobotic and NASA about the failed Peregrine lunar lander that unfortunately was not able to reach the moon. It came back to Earth today at about 3:50 is when they lost signal on Peregrine as it was coming back through the atmosphere. Snapped one last photo on its way back, and both Astrobotic and NASA are going to talk about the mission attempt and what's coming next up for the Commercial Lunar Payload Services Program, or CLIPS. Lots to come with that. Much more to talk about. Anyway, we'll have a full discussion on that with news from the press site. So be sure to subscribe to the channel on your way out if you haven't already. Ring the notification bell so you get alerted when we go live. I'm Will Robinson Smith for Spaceflight Now. Be good to yourself, be good to others, and we will see you next time. Have a good night.